it's such a joy to be with you all. I mean, virtually with you. But these days are a reminder that we are all united in the body of Christ, no matter where we are. So there's this sense of, yeah, we really are together. And that's the power of the resurrection, that this life we have is shared by all of us. So hallelujah. So first, to answer Mary Claire's question, I think one of my highlights was really just the silence. Like we have this really deep silence during the Triduum in all of our convents. And we're really blessed here because in Scotland, there's just so much beauty. So I went out to this farm that's not too far away, and it was just me and the cows and some swans and this beautiful little pond. And it was so prayerful. And so it was just a moment of real being with the Lord. So that was a highlight. But I kind of wanted to start with the gospel from today, because I want to use that to kind of relate my story to Mary Magdalene. So I'm going to share my screen with you. You should see. And Mary Claire's probably thinking I'm going to show something different. Well, maybe I should show that one first. Okay, well, I'll show that one first, and then I'll get serious. Okay. So you all can read that. Now, if you don't know Latin, I'll just translate for you. Noli me tangere means don't touch me, Mary Magdalene, which is right from the gospel from today. So he can relate to our experiences because he was the first to initiate social distancing. Okay, so now I want to draw your attention to this beautiful piece of art that happened in the Garden of the Resurrection, and it was painted by Fra Angelico, Blessed Fra Angelico, who is a Dominican from the 15th century. So I thought you could look at that while I read the gospel from today. This is a reading from the gospel according to John. Mary Magdalene stayed outside the tomb weeping, and as she wept, she bent over into the tomb and saw two angels in white sitting there, one at the head and one at the feet where the body of Jesus had been. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken my Lord, and I don't know where they laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus there, but did not know it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" She thought it was the gardener and said to him, "Sir, if you carried him away, tell me where you laid him, and I will take him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Stop holding on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and tell them, I am going to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and then reported what he had told her. Okay, so now I can stop sharing for a moment here. There we go. Okay. So I was very blessed to be raised in a Catholic family in St. Louis, Missouri, in the U.S. And St. Louis was a very Catholic city, actually. We have probably 20 Catholic high schools or secondary schools. There's a Catholic church practically on every corner. So I was really spoiled in that sense, and I didn't realize that when I was growing up. It was just kind of what people did. And so I was the first of 4 children. And from the beginning, my parents were very, very committed to our Sunday Mass and to praying together before meals and when we went to bed. But it wasn't until I got to high school. So by that time, I had 3 younger siblings. And my mom went through this kind of conversion. She went to a retreat, and the priest said, "Have you ever thought about praying the rosary with your families?" And my mom was like, "No." And he said, "I really encourage you to do it. It will transform your family." And so she's like, "All right, let's do it." So she came home and she just kind of said, "All right, we're going to start praying the rosary as a family now, every day." And I mean, we went from just our simple, thanking God for one thing, praying for some people at the end of the day, to praying the rosary. And so needless to say, we were not too excited about this. So it was like pulling teeth because, I'd be doing my homework, or we'd be watching TV, or we'd be at a sports practice. And so it was really difficult for my mom to gather us all together. And then she had mercy on us. So we just started with 1 decade a night instead of a whole, 5 decades. Because she never would have gotten us to do that from the beginning. So she even had this little notebook where she'd write like a 1-sentence line from scripture on each page. So there'd be one for each Hail Mary. So we'd have 10 little reflections, 10 Hail Marys, and that was us. And even the dog showed up with her bone. It was the whole family was there. But then as time went on, it did start to have an effect on our family. And we couldn't have told you that in the moment, but now as I'm looking back, I saw, oh, wow, we actually started to get along better as a family. And it's really kind of remarkable, like just more patient with each other, more just kind of happy to be around, just less temperamental, offering to help each other with things. That's the work of grace. There's no natural explanation for that. And so she eventually said, all right, well, we've been doing this for a while now. I think we can handle a whole rosary on Sundays. So we did that. And then after a while, it was a whole rosary every night. But at this point, we were getting older and it was getting busier. So she would just get whoever she could. It might be in the car on the way to school. It might be just whoever she could grab. But she was so committed to that. And I attribute my vocation, really, the seeds of my vocation that were given to me at my baptism were enabled to flourish through that family rosary. I really feel like Our Lady kind of stepped into my life at that point and led me right to Jesus, because Mary always does this. Whenever she's around, your relationship with Jesus just gets this boost. And that's exactly what happened, because I was a freshman, so a first year in high school, so I was about 14, and I went to a Catholic high school, but it wasn't a very strong one. So we had a Blessed Sacrament chapel, and no one ever went in there. So I thought I wasn't really supposed to be there. But one day my mom was like, you know what? You go to a school that has Jesus in it. You need to go see him. And so I said, oh, nobody goes in there. It's kind of dark and maybe it's locked. But she said, just 5 minutes, just go in at the end of the day before I pick you up. Basically threatening, if you don't go in, I won't drive you home, because I couldn't drive at this point. And so the first day I went in there, I kind of, if anyone had seen this, it would have looked really funny, because I kind of did this like James Bond kind of like sneak down the hallway, like trying to hide against the walls. And then I got to the chapel and I went in really quickly and I left the light off so no one would see me. I went in and I don't know if I lasted for 5 minutes, and then snuck out again. But I was able to say to my mom, okay, I did it. And so she said, good, well, do it again tomorrow. And I was like, oh. So every day, just as faithfully as the rosary, I was making this 5-minute visit with Jesus. And the same thing happened. Like, it was this very gradual transformation, but it was a real transformation, because I couldn't believe it. But after a while, I started to visit Jesus twice and every school day. I would go in at the beginning, and then I would find myself sneaking away during lunch to just be like, okay, Lord, I have this big test I'm worried about, or this person hates me, what should I do about it? Or, all of the high school drama. I would find myself unpacking it before the Lord. So I was thinking about Mary Magdalene today, and how at the beginning, she doesn't recognize Jesus. Okay, she turns and looks at him, thinks he's the gardener. And so it's the sense of like, I know someone's there, but I don't really understand who it is. That was kind of like my life up to this point where we started to have family prayer, the rosary, and spending time with the Blessed Sacrament. It was like Jesus was a part of my life, but I didn't really know him. So this was a real turning point, because it was during that time of prayer in the Blessed Sacrament that I felt him call my name. Like, he said, Mary. And that's my baptismal name. So that's why I especially love this gospel, because that's exactly what he spoke to me. It was a sense of like, I've been waiting for you. I know you, and I want you. I want you for myself. And at that time, I didn't realize, okay, like I'm supposed to be a sister. It was just the beginnings of that sense of, I'm called to relationship with God and a sense that he was really there in the Blessed Sacrament. It wasn't just this kind of place to go to feel close to Jesus, but that he was actually there and I could really talk to him like a friend. Um, so as I spent time with him, just it's kind of like, like the drops of water that keep dripping and eventually something's carved out. It was the small little acts every day where my desires were being shaped. So it was like all of a sudden I found myself wanting to pray more. It wasn't just this thing mom was telling me to do, but it was like, no, I think I'm falling in love with someone. And when that happens to you, your whole life then revolves around a different axis. It's just like your relationships change, what you do with your time changes, the way you look at your life and your future. It was all starting to be bathed in this light of faith of like, this is about a relationship with God who's calling me on this adventure. And the people in my life are people placed in my life by God. And how can I share Jesus with them? So it's just this whole kind of transformation of my worldview. And I really think that's what faith is meant to do. I had this sense of like, I think my heart is made for God alone, but I couldn't really articulate that. And I had never met sisters, so I wouldn't have been able to tell you. At that moment, I felt called to religious life because I didn't. I went off to college after that. So I went to university in Missouri and studied nursing. And I basically lived in our Catholic center there, the student center. That's where all my friends were. I would go there to pray. So it really was like Jesus had got my heart by this point. And so as I was going through nursing school, I had this sense of, I want to give my life somehow. And I felt like nursing was a way to do that, like a way to serve and to give and to be a kind of like a mother, like to nurture and care for people. But towards the end of my university, I was getting this sense of, no, there's something more. There's something a little more total or radical that's not just about a career, but it's about a vocation, like who I am, not just what I'm going to be doing. And so at that point, I was like, I think I need to actually like talk to a sister because I had gotten a few things in the mail from different communities. And it was like when I would see them and I'd see pictures of women in habits, women who look so happy, women praying, living in community. And I thought, wow, that's surprisingly attractive to me. And so that little kind of spark of excitement would kind of shoot up in me when I saw that. And which is different for everyone, because I've talked to other sisters who, as soon as they would get mail from religious communities, they would, in fear, just like throw it out or hide it under the bed. I just want to run away, which is totally fine. That's just, God works through us different ways. But for me, it was just that, like, this is what I actually want. But there was still that kind of trepidation, like, me? He wants me to be, or could be calling me to be his bride? Like, that was just like mind-boggling. So I was like, all right, well, I need to go talk to sisters. So I went on a nun run. So that's just a word that means you go visit convents. So basically people pile in a van and you drive around and you stop at different convents and you spend a night with different communities and talk to them, pray with them, get a feel for their life. So I did that, and throughout St. Louis actually. And that was really helpful because I was able to see, okay, this is something real. It's not just something out of the past or something from a pamphlet, but these are real women who are really in love with God. And it was eye-opening for me. But as I was going to visit different communities, I'd be like, oh, I really like that about that community, or I like that about that community. But I didn't feel like any one community was like, that's it, So I just kept taking that to prayer. And eventually, kind of when I was a senior, so my last year of university, I went to World Youth Day. And this is going to tell you how old I am, but I went to World Youth Day in Cologne. Okay, this is 2005. And so there, it was Pope Benedict's first World Youth Day, and it was in Germany. So it was really special for him. And I just prayed for a grace. I said, Lord, I really feel like you're calling me to religious life, but I'm not totally sure, and I don't know where. So could you help me out? So sure enough, when I got there, I met a seminarian who was from my diocese, and his sister is in our community. And so he started talking about how he, before he was a seminarian, would go visit her there, and he was so against her vocation. He's like, you are throwing your life away. She was this person who was so full of life and very talented. She could have been like an actress. She's so dramatic. But he was so against it. And he started telling me about how he was changed by being there, to the point of he discovered his own priestly vocation through going to visit her at the convent. So it was quite a story, but it ended up, he said, you need to go visit. If you're thinking about religious life, I'd recommend it. And so I was like, well, all right, Lord, is that the sign? So I went home, and he had already sent me things in the mail. Like he had arranged for the community to have things at my university apartment waiting for me when I got back. Like, more information about retreats. So I did go visit, and it was when I remember driving onto the property, and my heart was pounding. Okay, like the gates are opening of this beautiful property in the middle of downtown Nashville, this huge brick building, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm here. Like, why am I so, like, in one sense terrified, in one sense like so excited. And as I entered into the retreat, and I saw there were other young women with me, so I was like, okay, I'm not in this alone. And I really got to meet some of the sisters. It was a sense of just being at home. Like, it's hard to describe. I guess it would be kind of like if you're dating someone, you just kind of know when that person's the right one. It was just the sense of like, I fit here. A sense of I've been prepared for this community because I could see myself with these sisters. I could see myself praying with them because I had already been praying somewhat at the office. I'd been praying the rosary. I'd been so excited about the fact of proclaiming the truth, which is the Dominican charism. I had desired, a community life, and that whole idea of being a bride of Christ. So it was like all of it was coming to life before my eyes. And I'm like, this is real. Like, I could really be called to this. Like, this is what I want. This is almost too good to be true. But in His mercy, like, God just let me know that was it. So I. That's kind of the journey to get to the convent. And when I actually entered, it was the beginning of a new stage, because it's hard. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to be in love with Jesus and spend my life with Him forever and ever. Yes, that's true, but it's not all this emotional high. Like, it's a hard life. I mean, there does involve sacrifice. Like, I had to leave my family, which was hard, and we were such a close family. And just that sense of, wow, I have to really leave like my friends and this future that I was going to have in nursing. Although at that point I kind of was like, I knew that it wasn't it, but still that sense of leaving the world. But as I kind of got more adjusted to that, I realized, I have a grace for this. Like, if someone else was trying to live this life, it wasn't really called to it, you just wouldn't be able to. Just like I look at mothers, I'm like, how do you do it? And they say the same about us, because you really do have a grace to live what God has called you to live. And that's where your cross is going to be. But it's going to be the cross that will bring you life and will bring other people life. Whereas if you choose something that you don't have the grace to live, you're going to have the cross, but it's not going to be a fruitful cross. It's not going to do you any good or anyone else any good. It's not going to be the easy yoke with Christ that from the gentle hands of Christ, that's easy to bear, that actually redeems you. So it was like, I could still have joy in the midst of those sacrifices, because I was like, I have the one thing necessary, and but also you grow up a lot once you're into the convent. So you come to realize real truths about yourself. The Lord wants you to be pure. Like, He doesn't want a divided heart. And so it's a lot of purification in the sense of like, He's like, I don't want you to have any false foundations. I don't want you to have any false idols or attachments that will lead you away from me, from you giving your heart completely to me and allowing me to fill you with the joy that I want to give you. So there can't be any obstacles to that. So it's this process of real purification, um, and a sense of, yes, I am taking up my cross every day, but, and I saw this when I first entered, like watching the joy of the sisters, I was like, it's worth it. It's really worth it, because you see their love and their fulfillment and their freedom when the world looks at them and says they've given all that up. You've given up love. You don't have a spouse. You don't have, your family. You've given up possessions. You've given up joy and freedom. But it was like, the irony is they have it to the full. And as I've lived this life, I've come to realize that, that God wants us to be fully alive in our vocations, and that he does want to bring us happiness. So it's not just about objectively, what's the holiest thing I can do with my life? It's, what does God want for you? And that will actually come from a desire he's planted in you. It's not like, oh, I feel attraction to this, but that's probably better. I should go for that. But no, listen to those desires, because that's what God has planted in you. It doesn't mean I always get what I want, but it just means those deepest desires for your fulfillment and your happiness, pay attention to those, because you will have a sense of peace when you're living the vocation God has made for you. So anyway, that was 2006 that I entered. And so it's been a journey until 2013 was my final vows. And then, so now I've been here, oh gosh, going on, how many years is that? 2006, 14 years. And it's flown by. But it's really a story of his grace. So I hope that that's what's come across to you all. But praise God. So I think that's all. Sorry, I keep forgetting about Mary Magdalene here. But just that whole idea of, I have seen the Lord, like once I found him, it was like, I've met him and I want to be with him. And he says, you can hold on to me now. You can hold on to me with all your heart. But don't hold on to anything else. Hold on to me. And tell other people now that you have seen me.